So here we are, middle of the afternoon. I want to come on today and just kind of share some stuff. I don't have a template here. I don't have a script or anything of that nature. I'm just here in the moment as I am right now. And as are you, right? My question is, are you accepting who you are in this very moment? I mean, let's look back at things, right? We've all done stuff that we're not proud of. We've all said things that have caused harm. We've done things that probably weren't the smartest thing to do. And we've all been through things that are painful and that cause us harm in certain ways, right? Pain is something that I think we all have to go through at some point. The idea that pain is non-existent or that we can rationalize ourselves or use some sort of modality, astrology, tarot, numerology, the matrix, the design matrix, or whatever other modality is out there, breathwork, Reiki, all this stuff. We can do all of that all day long. But does it really do anything to better your future? Sure, you may not have as much anxiety. That's important. I get that. If you're battling with depression, maybe it helps with that. But ultimately, if we look forward 6 months and you continue doing what you're doing today, do all the Reiki you need to do, get all the massages and all of that stuff. If you do nothing else, does your life change? Your internal state will be different, absolutely. What I'm getting at here is in the world that we live in the reality that we live in this 3D, three-dimensional reality, we have to take action in certain ways in order to change our life. If we continue to do the same things over and over and nothing really shifts, then it's not the algorithm, it's not the views, it's not anything like that. It's you, right? And it's not a judgment, it's an observation of we are in control. And if the life that we want is not where, if we are in a position in our life that we don't want to be in, we have to look at ourselves. Excuse me. Looking at self is not an easy task. It can be full of criticism and judgment and ridicule. What's up, Alvin? And it can lead to us being harder on ourselves than actually moving past and healing those things. So today will be short, but I do want to come on here and just discuss mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, that's what keeps coming to me, is being mindful. This is something that I teach to my clients. This is something that I teach in my yoga classes. This is something that I teach in my journals that I've created. And I even try and put this into my music that I make, because everything starts in the mind. And yes, the body responds and emotions are powerful, but emotions come and go, right? Emotions are a temporary energetic response to some sort of stimulus, right? If you can be at home and then all of a sudden you remember, oh my God, I forgot that I have an appointment, right? Suddenly your body is flooded with stress hormones and adrenaline, right? To get you moving and to get you into action. But that all started with the thought, right? The, oh my gosh, I just remembered. And then boom, the feelings come through. If we can observe our feelings, they are almost always connected to a thought. right? So let's expand on that. The thought is, I'm not enough, right? I'll use my own experience here. For a long time, based upon my past of neglect and abandonment and betrayal, um, though the thought of I'm not enough is something that stuck with me for a long time. You know, I'm human, it still comes up. I'm not saying like I'm healed and I'm the best and I'm no, man. It takes a lot for me to even hit the live button to come on here and say, okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable. Alvin, dude, I spent time in the military. I am so familiar with anger. That's probably a better example, honestly. Thank you. Anger is secondary. Let me backtrack. I grew up in a household of addiction. I grew up in a household of neglect. I grew up in a household of domestic violence, um, addiction rampant in my childhood. So I learned that the way you solve emotions is through anger, right? If I'm angry, then no one bugs me. If I get pissed off and I scream and I get loud and I make myself big, guess what? I got a big wall and no one wants to mess with me. But that anger also keeps the good from coming in, right? That wall that we put up. And what I've learned through therapy and through educating myself because I wanted to be better is that anger isn't an actual reason for why we're feeling anger. Anger comes under something, right? Let me give an example. You're in a relationship and your significant other decides to start talking to someone else. Maybe that would incite some anger. But it's not just anger, it comes from the potential possible betrayal, right? The betrayal of someone that you care about not giving you the respect, so that disrespect leads to the anger. Okay, let's use another example. Feeling unseen, right? I'm familiar with this. You're dealing with somebody, and then all of a sudden, the texting is great, and you're talking on the phone, and then all of a sudden they go silent, right? This can go one of two ways. We walk away and say, okay, they're done talking or they need space or whatever that is. Or you can be like the old version of me and get angry about it. Like, what the hell? What did I do wrong? Oh, it must be me. I must not be enough. So then that anger starts to come up, the frustration, and then that can lead to dozens of other emotions, right? We can go from anger to self-abandonment to unworthiness to fear to all of these different emotions in like 2 seconds, right? How many emotions do you have throughout the day? I bring all of this up, one, because I want to say, Alvin, I appreciate you asking because that's helpful. Um, I think all anger is the same, Alvin. I truly do. Anger is a protective mechanism, right? Anger can be righteous, and your anger isn't always bad, right? If somebody does harm to you, and it's like legit, like, you know, they cheated or they betrayed you or they overlooked you or you felt neglected and you tried to express yourself and they just kind of dismissed you. I use relationships because that's where I struggle in maintaining that part of myself, right? That's when it comes up. And that anger, it can be righteous, right? It's a protective mechanism for us that says, hey, I don't like that and I'm going to stand up for myself because I'm worthy to be stood up for. But it can also be destructive, right? Like a fire. A controlled fire is good for the soil. It helps to build nutrients and things like that, and it can burn down things to be rebuilt. But it can also be destructive, like these mega fires that we have now, you know, where they're uncontrollable and they create their own weather and they're just absolute destruction, right? Anger can go one of two ways. It can be used as a healthy response to feeling something, or it can be used as a destructive response that does harm to not only them but to you as well, right? Because how easy is it to get angry and just lash out? It really doesn't take a lot. We can go unconscious really easily. But what is it like to clean up after that anger? How difficult is it to rebuild trust and to rebuild engagement and openness and vulnerability with somebody that you've hurt through your aggression, right? Really what it comes down to is awareness, right? Kind of backtracking to the mindfulness part of what I was saying is that our body's going to respond to the thoughts, right? We start repeating kind of a mental pattern, and we start witnessing the anger. Hmm. Well, Alvin, I'll ask you this, man. When you're angry, what are you thinking, right? What is your body feeling like in that anger? Because the anger is coming from something. You don't just go into school one day and you're angry. You don't just come home one day and you're angry. Sure, you might be sitting in the anger for hours and hours, but there's something there that is keeping it persistent in what you're feeling. So that anger, you can question it. What am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? And just listen. You don't have to have an answer right away. Asking a question to the mind, you will always get an answer. It may not happen right away. You might be driving, or you might be on the bus or something, but eventually it'll come to you, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that's why. That makes so much sense, right? It's going to be different for you than it is for me. My stuff, I've come to understand that when I'm feeling neglected or abandoned, that was my go-to protective mechanism of like, you're not going to hurt me. I'm just going to get angry and push you away. So then you can't hurt me, right? My righteous anger. No, that was anger used as a protective mechanism that keeps me from getting hurt. And it's not healthy, right? A better way to go about that situation would be have been for me to discuss, why am I feeling this way, and discuss it with the person that did harm. Those conversations are not easy. As far as answering your question about controlling anger, I teach yoga, and I do breath work pretty much every day. And those two things have helped me personally very, very much. Breathing in general is our superpower, right? We were blessed with this gift of the breath. Because think about this, you can go without food for about a month. Yeah, it's going to hurt, and your stomach's probably going to be that. You probably lose a lot of weight, but you won't die from it. If you go without water, right? We can go roughly anywhere from like 4 to 7 days without water. Granted, again, it's going to hurt, and we'll have headaches, and we'll be lightheaded, and our body will feel like garbage, but we won't perish. Now think about the breath, oxygen. If you hold your breath right now for 3 minutes, more than likely you'll pass out. Now, there are some people, some elite athletes like free divers, who can go 20 minutes without breath. Navy SEALs, right? They have to train to master and increase their volume, their VO2, and how they exchange oxygen into the body. So these guys are exceptions to the rule. But as a normal human to human, we can last 3 to 5 minutes with no oxygen before our body literally forces us to breathe. And oftentimes that comes with us passing out, and then the body starting to like breathe on its own, right? The breath is the superpower that we were all gifted with. And whenever we stop breathing, or when we become unconscious of our breath, we're still breathing, right? But the mind can be going a billion miles an hour thinking about the squirrels and the thing I got to do at home and the past and focusing on the future and sitting in anxiety and all of this stuff, right? But when we come into the breath, and when we breathe and we sit with ourselves and we are conscious, inhaling, exhaling, right? A long, steady breath, steady inhale with an extended exhale. What that's going to do is it's going to force the body into relaxation. It'll force the body to come out of the mind where the anger probably is sitting and come back into the breath, into the present moment. Because the mind, anger, can be often associated with the past, right? I was hurt, I'll never be hurt again, and the way I won't get hurt is by being angry, right? Protecting myself. But what does that do? I'm not a doctor, man. I am just a guy who's done a tremendous amount of self work, and has pulled myself out of some really dark situations with what I choose to share with y'all. In a way, sharing my story and what I've learned along the way. None of this is um, saying it's going to cure you, but there is a lot of peer reviewed data and there's a lot of stuff behind what I say. And I'm a living proof of it. So, yeah, no doctor or anything. And if gay is what you perceive, that's your perception, man. Um, Mindfulness isn't gay, just putting that out there. But toxic masculinity is pretty toxic. With that being said, despite this man's ego, um, when we breathe, we put our body into what we call a parasympathetic state. Parasympathetic is rest and rejuvenation, right? The society we live in puts us into a state of stress, money, jobs, family, obligations, all that stuff. With parasympathetic, it puts us into a state of healing our body. It allows our cells to regenerate, right? The food we put into our body is destructive to us. The phones and the Wi-Fi and all of those things, those actually put us into a mild state of stress. And that stress prevents the body from healing itself, right? We naturally can produce all the chemicals that we need to heal our bodies, whether that be oxytocin to feel good, or serotonin to feel love, or dopamine to get that rush of um, like feeling good, right? Accomplished, even. So, by offering the breath to ourselves, we put our body into a state of relaxation and it calms the mind naturally and any emotions that come with it, right? As I've mentioned, I instruct yoga. And when putting in the work in yoga and stretching and breathing and moving the body with intention, what that does is it allows the body to go ahead and again put itself into a state of relaxation and put itself into a state of coherence, right? Where the mind and the heart are actually communicating with one another in a, like I said, in a coherence, where they're on the same page, where the mind isn't fighting the heart and the heart isn't fighting the mind, and they're both on the same page, right? When we're ego driven in our responses and the way that we talk to people, it's very easy to get drawn into the mind and put ourselves above others. And by doing that, it almost puts us into a state of stress. It puts us into a state of fear because what we see in others is often what we see in ourselves. And if we criticize and judge and we're critical of others, it's often because we're critical of ourselves and we judge ourselves in a lot of ways. And by projecting our insecurities onto others, what that shows is a weak mind. And what that shows is the inability to be aware of self. And instead, it's easier to point the finger and judge others because there's the inability to look at oneself, the courage to look at oneself. So, the anger, all of the emotions that come with it, it's something that is normal to being a human, but we have the opportunity to master those emotions by mastering this thing up here and by mastering the breath, giving ourselves an opportunity to actually sit with ourselves, hear what we're thinking, hear what or feel what we're feeling, and choose to do different. And we start by being mindful of what we're thinking and feeling and asking ourselves questions. And we do this by breathing, right? When we take shallow breaths, we have shallow thoughts. When we take deep conscious breaths and fill up our body with oxygen, with life force, we grow. We expand ourselves. We expand our consciousness. We expand our toroidal field. We expand our being by breathing. So if there is something that that individuals want to project, whether that be an emotion, a thought, a perception, or just a projection of their own insecurities, then know that you have control over that by just breathing and coming back to yourself, and knowing that no one outside of you can control your internal state. If you choose to feel something and you're feeling something, that's your choice to feel it. No one can make you feel or think anything other than what you choose to allow in. So with that, I wanted to come on for about 20 minutes today and just kind of flow. I appreciate those who showed up. If this resonates, definitely like and subscribe. As I mentioned, I'm going to do my best to come on here every day and just talk. And maybe you'll get something out of it. If you do like what I have to offer, check out my bio. I got a link up there. I do journals. I make music. I have a Facebook page with all kinds of information, free stuff on there. I got journals on Amazon, like I said, and I have an art shop with all kinds of images on t-shirts and mouse pads and wall art, all kinds of stuff. So I'd love for you to check it out if you're interested. And if not, I will see you next time. Peace.